One, welcome back to the Build and Invest Show. Hope everyone is doing well today. Today I'm going to be discussing. I'm starting to cancel software subscriptions and hiring AI instead. And I think everybody's going to start doing this. And I'm going to start talking you through my experience, why I think this, what this means for business, means for employment. Okay, so start out, every business spends money to exist, right? You have to have all kind of things in place to operate a business. There's almost no way to operate a business without paying for any software. But we are getting to a point in time where you are able to choose which software you are willing to keep paying for or not. And the real repercussions to what is happening right now is if you're a business that is targeting B2B, you better be a business that somebody can't just recreate in a day. Which I'm going to start talking you through some of the things I've been putting in place. And I did 2 today. No, actually, I think I did 2.5 today. It didn't get finished, but it's pretty close. It just was a couple of form filling out that I just didn't have time to complete. But if it wasn't for the form filling out, I would have done 3 things today by itself. And the repercussions of what that means is pretty scary. When I think about it for myself too, as a business owner, right? I have a business that I need to make sure somebody can't just say, you know what? I'm just going to rebuild this myself instead of paying for whatever business that is that they're using of mine. So starts out by this morning. I was going through my expenses and for the business, and I said, you know what? This thing I pay I think it's $69 a month for. I don't know if I need this because I'm not using it that much. That was where it really started. I was like, you know what? I'm not really using it enough. $70 a month. It's about $800 a year. I've been paying for this for a few years and I'm really not using it. So then I said, why am I not using it? And I realized it's just a pain. It's a whole separate thing that I need to deal with that just doesn't work within my workflow. So I said, you know what? Doesn't make sense. But then I said, why did you start using this in the first place? Why did you? So there was a reason. I really liked the service it provided. It just wasn't ideal in the way it worked within my workflow. So I said, how would it be ideal in my workflow? And I spoke to myself. I said, okay, what would it need to be and do for it to make sense for me to use it still? Because I was trying to justify the payment, And I got to the point where I said, you know what? If it was within my overall dashboard that I run the business through, it would make sense. So then I said, let me see if I can code something to do it. So I basically spoke to my CEO, my CEO for my OpenClaw, and I said, I use this app. I don't want to name the specific app. I guess I will start naming apps, actually. I'm going to name apps. I'll name that later, which apps I'm starting to replace. And I've replaced a few already. So I said, I use this app because I like these features. Can you add those features to the dashboard of Stack's admin panel? Within a couple of hours, I had a feature that I paid probably 2.5 years, $70 a month for. So if you do that math, 70 times 12, let's just round it off to eight. Let's say 900 taxes. 1,800, half the year, another 900. So at least $2,500 of value that I've paid a corporation, I was able to reproduce in a couple of hours. And it's live on my dashboard right now. I can do everything I was doing there. There's one feature that I'm still finishing, and it has to do with another thing. Because when I got into that, I was like, wait a minute. What else is like this that, I've been paying for, barely using it? Can I recreate it? And I had got on this path early on with the AI agent thing, but I didn't realize this is what I was doing. So that's why the title of this show today is very important, because the way you think about it is going to adjust how you do it, right? So in the beginning, I was just trying to get more control over what I wanted to do. So I'll start out the explanation. I wanted to create more content using AI. The problem is when you subscribe to these platforms, they have a window of time where if you don't use your credits, you lose them. So I had been paying for a bunch of different services. I would estimate $200 to $300 a month in services that I was never using fully each month, and they would just reset the credits each month. And I'm like, oh man, I didn't use all my credits, or I didn't even use most of the credits. So I said, you know what? If I built my own interface that taps into the APIs, I can't lose those monthly credits. If I pay for an amount of credits, I will use them whenever I use them. If that month I ended up not using them, I still can use them next month. So that's where it started out. So then I built the content engine, because I said, okay, every day I'm going to create content. Instead of going through these processes, there's a few different things. If I use those apps, I have to go into their specific websites, and it takes it out of my automation flow, right? So I said, okay, let me start out with creating videos based on some of the services I pay for. Within a couple of days, I had a service that was making videos every day for cheaper than I was paying for those monthly services. And if I were to pay for the full amount, I would have been able to make way more videos than me going through those platforms, because of the way I personalized it for my need. So this is where then I became interested in what else can I do like that. So today really unlocked, because that was for content creation, which that's more my wheelhouse. If you know me, I've been making videos and animation for a long time. I went to school for that. So I did that while I was always developing as well. I kind of merged those worlds. So for content creation, I just thought, oh, that's because my skill set is in that world. So I was able to guide an AI to do that. But today was different, because my thinking just unlocked a lot more. So I'll give you example by example. So let's think about products that every business needs. Every business needs a book, QuickBooks, let's just say. That's like a staple to every business, right? You gotta make sure your books are kept in the right way for taxes and possible investors and all that. So that one, I believe I pay $40 a month, and I've been paying for that since the company existed, right? And again, I realize I barely go in there, because my business is mostly a crypto business. So we get paid on the blockchain, because everything we do is on chain. So when people pay us, it goes to a crypto wallet, and QuickBooks doesn't even connect to that. So my income comes from on-chain, but my outflows go through QuickBooks, because I pay for stuff through the bank account, and most vendors don't accept crypto yet. So I have to end up sending the crypto money to the bank account to pay for services. So the QuickBooks is really just showing me what we're paying for each month, but there's no income. So it's really off because it looks like we're just losing money every month forever since we started, but it's not the case because it doesn't have that other set of information. So I have to work a whole thing to like combine that, right? I have to take the on-chain data, figure out what's the best way to put it in QuickBooks myself. So I'm like, whatever, I'm not doing that. But today I realized I could just make and I'll tell you exactly how I'm planning on doing it. I think we all are going to get to this point where we say, can I just have an AI rebuild this? So with QuickBooks, I'm really just using it as a place to make sure that I'm keeping track of expenses only. So I said, what is an ideal accounting system for me and this business specifically, because it has this weird on-chain, off-chain connection? So I said, the ideal situation is I create my own API that shows our fees that we're making on-chain, and then I download my bank statements and I make the AI do all of the sorting of what each expense is, combine that with the data from the on-chain, and now I can really see a profit loss real time. And that's when like my brain exploded, because I was like, wait a minute, all I have to do then is create a folder, download all my statements, drag them into that folder, and then tell the AI, go through that folder line by line, decide what you think that entry is, and then give me a place to approve or change it. So it's like creating my own little QuickBooks software. So that's when I really thought, oh man, this is going to happen for everything. Eventually, every business will think this way, right? Because again, $40 here, $60 there, $50 here, $60 there, $50 here, $100 there adds up. So as a business owner, you know, you could be spending thousands of dollars a month on different services, and you're maybe not paying attention. Like I wasn't. One of the biggest things is as Stack was rising and ups and downs, I wasn't paying attention to every single thing we were paying for. That's another thing that I wish I had a better sense of day to day, right? If it was like, okay, the fees are up, our costs are going up, same amount, fees are coming down, our costs should be coming down. So we need to pay attention to that. So one of the things I wasn't paying attention to enough is how our infrastructure cost was rising as our customers were rising. Then when the customers were falling, the infrastructure cost wasn't falling. So I needed to figure out how to protect that from not being a problem, right? Because you get to the point where your infrastructure cost is rising even though your customers are not rising. So this is, again, my specific use case that I don't want to figure out how to bring into QuickBooks. I'd rather just rebuild QuickBooks. And because QuickBooks doesn't have the things that we're going to talk about today, they are susceptible to what I'm talking about. People are just going to say, you know what? I pay for this software. It's a pain. It doesn't really do things the exact way I want to do it anyway. Why don't I just build it myself? And yes, it may take some time. Different things and different skill sets in using AI may take longer, but eventually it's going to be as easy as it is for me, for everyone. So we are in a time where if your business doesn't fit in that structure, you are in trouble, right? Because I've already eliminated many things. So I'm going to go one by one. Let's talk about, so first ones, I spoke about the video AI tools. So I've been using HeyGen, Kling, Higgsfield, FreePick, LTX Studio. I'm sure there were more. Midjourney, Kling. So these are all like if you added just those up right there, $400, $500. right? It's crazy. And then another thing I just realized too is I made my CEO agent start to tell me how much percentage of the weekly AI usage are we using for our plan. So I realized today on one of our plans, we didn't use 80% of the tokens that we pay for this week. So now I'm like, okay, if I'm going to keep paying for that, I better make more use of those tokens. So now I need to create more agents to do more things. So this is where partly I started coming up with all this. I'm like, okay, I'm not using the tools as much as I'm paying for anyway. Certain tools like the LLMs. So like, for instance, the one I'm talking about specifically is ChatGPT. I pay $200 a month for that. And I'm not using 80% of it, right? So it's like, okay, that's not smart, right? You want to basically use what you're paying for. So I said, okay, now that means I need to figure out how to use more of ChatGPT, right? And that doesn't mean just being in ChatGPT and asking questions. It means building stuff, managing processes, creating AI employees. So when you think about the video stuff, I recreated all of that in Navo. You've heard me mention Navo. Navo is my content creation agent, and what it does is it creates a process that takes what all of those things do, but again, it's in my specific use case. So now I go to Navo, I say what I need, it creates it, I just need to approve it, it calls whichever APIs it needs, so it's not just charging me every month for stuff I don't use. And the best part is when you start out with a lot of this API stuff, they give you a lot of free credits. So for instance, for every Google email you have, Google will give you $300 of free credits. So the way that math turns out, right now it costs about a penny per image. But when you sign up to these platforms, like I said, it'd be $50, $60, $70, $100 a month, and you're paying to have access to these models. When you make a video, you have a certain amount of videos in these platforms. So for instance, I made this animation I showed a few days ago in Higgsfield. Higgsfield, I think I was paying $60, $70 a month. I used all my credits in one day to make that animation, that video. And now I've been using Navo and since it was the end of December, let's say 2 months. About 2 months. Let's say 2.5 months. I still haven't even used my $300 credit of Google. And guess what? I got a lot of emails, right? I can go to my next email, get another 300. My next email, get another 300. I have used the API keys for making videos though, and I've spent about $100 over 2.5 months. So again, think about that. One of those in 2.5 months, and I made way more videos through this system than I ever did on those platforms. So that's just video. Now I will tell you about the other thing I built. So on my website, on the Stack website, there's a chat where if you press it, it has a knowledge base that you can ask questions to. And if you don't understand, if it doesn't understand something, it can run that up to me and I could join the chat and answer. But what I also liked was it would show me who's live on the website, like, and where they're from. So I could see the customers from around the world. It would show me like a flag of where each customer was from and what links they were looking at. And when they would chat with me, I can see, oh, you're on this page. I can answer based on that. So I was like, that's really cool. I rebuilt that today. And again, that was a $60, $70 a month thing that I barely was using. I used it a lot early on when I was first growing the go-to-market. And as I got busier and busier, I just stopped looking at it because it's a whole thing to log into that I'm just outside of my process. But today I added it to my admin dashboard that I use to run the business. And now I can see it and I can do all the things. The only thing I can't do yet, and it was because of the same problem of another idea, is if they run it up, they want to talk to a human, what I had to do right now is say, if you want to talk to a human, click here and create a call. But I'm working to make it a Twilio implementation, Twilio API, so it can text me. So like, let's say somebody on the website is saying, yeah, I want to talk to a person. It would text me and then I can answer them back. Right? So the only reason it didn't work was because Twilio was a problem. Twilio was giving me issues with the legal of what we're talking about, because we're in the crypto space. We're like a dirty word to everything, right? So there was a compliance issue that I couldn't figure out in time, but I almost had it ready to even do that. And to be honest, there was a workaround where I can just, when they text message me, I could just go into the admin area and type back. I wanted it all to just happen in the text messaging. So that's my ideal state. So I said, let me just push to try to create the ideal state. But I could have made a simpler way of doing it. And I may just do that for now if Twilio doesn't let me. So think about that, right? Okay, that seemed like a lot of functionality. When I asked it, I was kind of expecting it to be like, yeah, that's a little difficult. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. You know what it told me? It said, let's create a 2-week production plan. I said, okay, but can you just start doing it all the way and let me know when you need me? And it basically did it in a couple of hours. And yes, it asked me for things. It needed API keys. It needed me to look and test. But I was doing that while I was doing other things, right? Like, that was being built while I was building another feature to the dashboard that I run the business through that I never had before. And the truth is, I've worked with many developers, and when I pay developers to work with me on Stack, I'm making them work on the hardest problems. So the dashboard has always been a thing that I wanted, but I couldn't make the developers stop working on the biggest problems to make it. So now that I'm able to go into a ChatGPT, go into a Claude Code, and build out things that I needed, but I couldn't take developers off. The old way would have been, I just needed to hire another employee developer. But again, if your business can't support that, which mine couldn't, now I have this AI employee that can. So that's where I got to, and I said, okay, what else can I do this with? So again, like, these are employees that every business needs, right? You need a bookkeeper, you need content, you need operations help. All these things are like now, and not every company needs development, right? But I think every company does need development. They just don't feel like they have the ability to do it. Because what is development really? It's leveraging technology, right? Even QuickBooks. What is QuickBooks? QuickBooks, people used to do their books before QuickBooks existed. They didn't need QuickBooks to do their books. They just did it by hand. What QuickBooks did was it connected to your bank account, pulled the data immediately, and then gave you a dashboard. So it leveraged technology to make it simpler for you to manage your books. So this is all leverage within technology, right? So when you think about where we are, every business needs that. But now, instead of having to hire someone like me or someone even higher level than me and pay them a large amount of money or a large amount of money for one specific project, you might be able to go into AI and just deal with the back and forth enough to build it yourself. You may not want to. You may not have the time, and you're like, I'd rather just hire somebody, and that's fine. But again, even they will be able to do things quicker than they used to if they're using these tools. So yeah, so basically on the overall, my main overall goal here is to show you how to create leveraging your business through media, technology, and finance, right? So when the finance one, most of the time when I talk about leverage finance, is around Stack and taking your money, buying Bitcoin, Ethereum, borrowing off of it to spend. That's how I create leverage within finance. But even today with the QuickBooks, I was like, whoa, actually, this actually gives me much more of a day-to-day understanding of the business than QuickBooks could ever, specifically because of my business. I don't know if every business could just use QuickBooks and be okay, but because I have this on-chain and off-chain data, merging them has been a problem. So for me, now I can leverage my financial data much better, right? And all that one takes is Claude Cowork. So basically what it's going to be, I'll give you an example of how I'm going to do that one. I'm going to have a folder, going to have Claude Cowork, or Codex, both maybe. There's going to be a cron job that checks once a day. I will download all the documents from the bank account, put it in a folder, and then tell it, make an interface for you to show me every single transaction and what you coded it as, and then show me my profit and loss by the day, by the week, by the month, by the year, by the quarter, whatever I want. And yes, it's going to be back and forth. But again, I'm building my own employee and I'm building what they're going to give me. So for my use case, I want to see those things. I want to see if in one day we've grown a lot, or something is causing fees to drop a lot, or something's causing infrastructure to grow a lot more in percentage than it should be, because that gives me more tools to deploy, right? Because if I see, wait a minute, the infrastructure cost went up 10% today, but the fees came down 3%. What is going on there? Okay, let's figure out what's happening. Because if something like that actually happened last year, and I didn't know it till like month 4 of it happening. Once it really got to the point where it was like, wait a minute, why is this happening? Why is so much of that cost growing, but our customers are not growing as fast as that? And then that took a couple of months to fix. If I would have caught it right when it was happening, I could have saved myself some money, right? So that's why you want to do stuff like this. So when you think about all of that and you put yourself in the business of running a business, you start to say, all right, I'm going to start canceling some of my subscriptions. And what happens to most SaaS businesses? So one of the things I think about a lot is, especially I run a business, right? So, I want to make sure that the businesses I'm building or that I already have these things, because if they don't, in the age of AI, you're going to succumb to what I just did. People are just going to replace what you do. So here are the main things businesses need to make sure they have incorporated in their business. You don't need to do all of them, but the more you can do, the more likely AI can't just replace your business, or somebody using your business can't just recode it. So first one, and this is a huge one, network effects. And if you don't want to know what network effects are, network effects means the more people that use your business or your product, the more valuable it becomes. So think about things like Uber, Airbnb, Facebook. I know these are the big businesses. You're like, yeah, of course those companies are billion-dollar companies. So let's go smaller. Network effects are things like two-way marketplaces, right? So a two-way marketplace means you have customers and you have buyers. So if you created a product that needs to have both those things, then if there's more customers and there's more buyers, the network effect is too large for you to leave and be like, I could recode that. Yeah, but you can't get the customers and the buyers, right? So for my business, one of the ones we use is Aave. Aave's our lender. Aave has $60 billion of liquidity. So we could have recoded Aave, but we couldn't re-get that $60 billion of liquidity. So for Stack, our thing is, our network effect is the more people use our product, the cheaper it becomes for everyone else. So that becomes our moat, right? Because you could try to create Stack on your own, but it's going to cost you more than just using us. And you don't got to deal with any of the infrastructure that we have to deal with. So that's where our network effect comes in. The second one, and I think this one is probably the biggest, it's going to start becoming the biggest. Distribution. What that means is, do you have a channel that brings in customers steadily and at large numbers? Because let's say we both have the same business type, industry, everything. But your business brings in 1,000 leads a day and my business brings in 1 lead a day. Who wins, right? The person with 1,000 leads. Because even if they are closing at the same rate or lower, they got a lot more leads. So that is going to be huge. So part of what I'm doing right now, even creating this content and more content, is because I want to start being one of the distribution channels that helps my business, right? Because at the end of the day, as the founder, most people know me anyway. So the more content I create, the better a distribution channel I become, and the content channels that I put out become, right? So this is why I think everybody needs to create content, because you need to be a distribution channel for your business. And think about that. We're all individuals. Nobody else can be Miguel Sanchez the way I am. There's a lot of Miguel Sanchez's, but they're not me, right? They don't have my exact background, my exact expertise. Same with you. Whatever you're building, there's nobody else like you. So if you can be a distribution channel, you automatically become a differentiator, because nobody else can be like you as a distribution channel. Yes, they can use the same exact platforms, but they are not you. So this is why content creation is so important. The next thing is regulatory barriers. So I spoke about how I'm looking into electrician companies, and I'm working with them using AI, but I'm also thinking about buying one. Why? Because they have a regulatory barrier, meaning you can't just own an electrician company. You have to be a master electrician to own an electrician company. So you either have to partner with one or be one. And if you have to partner with one, you're at a disadvantage, because if that person leaves, you're screwed, right? So that is a regulatory barrier that could protect that company against AI. And then in a few years, if you want to open up a electrician company, you have to train to be a master electrician, or partner with one, and that gives you some moat. Within Stack, one of the problems was early on, I was scared to death that there was a regulatory problem with what we were doing, because we were in the crypto space, and there were no laws, and nobody was setting laws for what we were doing. So that was why still to this day there's a wait list for Stack, even though we're 3 years in, because I wanted to make sure I knew as many of the people that use the platform as possible. And if anyone brought someone in, they knew who they brought in, so I could always have a customer base that I knew of what was happening. Because at one point, I did have a person who was going to bring in someone that I felt was a little sketchy, and I said, no, don't put them on the platform, because I don't even want to have anything to do with this person. The more I got information about them, I was like, nah, I don't want them using my platform. But if I just opened it up and somebody just went and used it, the government could have possibly came back to me. I didn't know the rules, so I didn't want to be too public around it. But then the rules started to get more clear of what was a commodity, what was an asset, right? So I said, you know what? I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to go out there. But the truth is, Stack, we take advantage of the fact that crypto kind of went around the finance regulatory space, because to do something like Stack in the old financial regulatory space, I would have had to pay a lot of money per state to do what we do now. So what does that do? It makes it so people like me can't even compete, because if you have to spend $1 million per state per year, what does that mean? That means you either have to raise ungodly amount of money and make ungodly amount of money out the gate. So it makes it impossible. And crypto, that's why I believe so much in crypto. It equalizes all of that. Like the powers that be can't stop it. So that's why I wanted to be in that world. But there was a regulatory barrier, and it's starting to come down, to be honest. So embedded workflows. Embedded workflows are things that are so connected to your business that it would suck to take them out, right? So what could that be? It could be QuickBooks for somebody like you. Like if you already have a system that's so embedded in QuickBooks, and you have people who are invoicing and borrowing, because QuickBooks created some things that maybe actually make it a little bit of a moat. Like they'll lend you money based on your accounts receivables. There's all kind of stuff like that yeah, you might not be able to recreate by recoding. But the fact that I don't use any of that, I can. But if it's so embedded in your business that it makes it something you can't take out, then you'll keep paying it. Proprietary data. This is the one that I'm building Stack mostly on. We have a proprietary algorithm. We have 3+ years of data. We have like years of back-tested data to create our formulas by our defaults. And again, as more people use the platform, as AI agents use the platform, we will have that data to adjust those defaults based on the data we have. And nobody else will have that data. So if somebody tries to copy, they're going to have to hope to get the same data we have in shorter period of time to compete with that, right? So every business does have proprietary data though. And you have to figure out how to like make that more and more of your value. And then liquidity aggregation, which is what I was telling you with Aave, right? If you're a lender and you can lend more money because you have more money in your system, it's hard to compete with that. So the fact that Aave has $60 billion of people borrowing, and they have liquidity for that level of borrowing, that's hard to copy. And that, I'm not sure how that works in every business, but it's just something to think about. And if you don't have these things, you're kind of in a position where somebody can just copy you. So even things like Calendly, right? So Calendly survived my cancellation cuts because it was too cheap to replace. But it's definitely replaceable because there's no network effect to it, right? Like, what are you doing? You're just booking through a calendar link based on my calendar open times. I could rebuild that. And then you press it and it tells me you booked a meeting. That's all very recreatable. But since it's not $60 a month, I'm paying, I think, $12. Whatever. I'll pay the $150 or something like that per year to make that a little bit easier. But I'll be honest, if one day I'm bored and I have some tokens left over, I might recreate that one too. And that's where, you get to a point where you look and you say, ooh, what happens to most businesses? Because I do think a lot of businesses are going to have this problem. A lot of software is going to have this problem. And we'll see with not just software, how that works out. But so when you think about all of this, right, you have to start thinking, what can I do right now to start AI protecting my business, right? So the realization is you got to think about everything you spend and say, is there a better way to spend this money? Or do I have to spend it at all? Can I rebuild it and have something that does it, because there's another thing with the QuickBooks example, right? So you could be using QuickBooks, like for instance, me, when one of my first businesses, I was paying a bookkeeper to do the coding, right? And I would get the statement, I would send it to them, they would code it. It was pretty. I think I paid like $500 a month back then for that. And again, it was something I could have done, but it was just I was too busy at that time. It was a different business. I had like 20 employees. It was like, you know what? I'll just pay somebody to do this. So now with Stack, I got less employees. I have less per day of transactions because most of the transactions happen on chain. So I could possibly do this. But again, why would I do it when I can have an AI do it, right? And this is where you got to figure out with your time. Because I know what most business owners would think. I'll just do it. I know a lot of business owners that code their own statements. They don't use QuickBooks. They just do it themselves. Save that money. I rather not. It's also not in my zone of genius, as they call it. I just hate doing that kind of stuff. So I'd rather pay somebody if I can't afford to pay somebody. But now, this is where this stuff starts to get really scary. It doesn't even matter if it's your zone of genius and you want to pay somebody, because it's so easy for the AI to do it and it costs so little. So now it becomes a no-brainer. And now if that was your job, what happens? I'm hearing horrific stories about lawyers, accountants, video, anything on a computer is kind of in the chopping block. And I really worry about what this means. But I'm trying to educate, scare you a little bit to get you going and starting to be outside of that strike zone, you know? So most SaaS is basically just logic. Like it's basically what I said about QuickBooks. QuickBooks basically just takes the files from your server of your bank, brings it into their system, shows it to you in a nice dashboard. AI can do that for you. Where QuickBooks was smart, they started adding other things like invoicing systems, which again you could do, but if there's already a lot of invoices out within that system, you're not going to want to turn that off, right? Because if you turn it off and somebody tries to pay, and I was in that system with one of my other companies where I had invoices always out through QuickBooks, so I couldn't turn it off, because if somebody was paying that day and it was off, you know, I'd have to interact with them. So that's another embedded workflow, right? So I just think you have to think about every expense as an employee, right? So even when I first started doing the videos, I was like, okay, I'm paying $60 for Higgsfield, $70 for Higgsfield, whatever it was, 80, I forget. What does that mean per month that I need from this employee? So Higgsfield, I viewed as a video employee. So I said, okay, if I get at least one video a month, preferably 2 to 3, then spending that $60, $70 is worth it. Because then I'm getting 3 good videos for $70. What I didn't account for was also my time, because I'm going to have to be in there using the tool for, let's say, a couple of hours. So now if you have my time plus that, I was the employee mixed with that service, that's where it starts to be, you know what, I can have an AI do the work and the actual tech connection. And that's what I built with Navo. So you kind of, if you're thinking that way, you benefit in multiple ways. You benefit as a business owner, you benefit as a 9-to-5 person, and you will start to see, is my job replaceable quicker? And if you can see that and adjust, retrain quicker, you'll be closer to the front of the line when all this gets hopefully fixed. So I don't have a lot of hope. I don't really think this is gonna get fixed like that. I think in history we've seen too many times they treat people differently, and I can't imagine that they just shift to treating everybody fairly because AI is here. That's why the biggest thing I work on is owning more capital, because there's only three ways to make money in this world: wages, owning capital, or government assistance. If you don't have wages and you don't have capital, you have to rely on the government. That's a scary place to be, and I don't want to be there. So that's why I'm trying to scare you, actually. I want you to get into this and go hard, because I don't know what happens from here, So, okay. So now, how do you create the first employee? Let's think it through. I'm going to give you my example of the bookkeeper. It really just, if you're a business owner, if you've never done this before, it's creating an SOP, standard operating procedure, right? So you just say, here's what I need you to do. So this is where, like, this I would say is one of my biggest weaknesses. I was never really good at taking stuff out of my head and giving it to other people to do. I just rather do it a lot of times, and that kind of, stunted growth for my businesses. Then I tried to really get better at it with Stack, which now I've had employees for years. These are the longest employees I've ever had, and I think it's partly because I'm trying to get better at that. But that skill set is more important now than ever, because you can give the same things you would give to a person, you can now give it to an AI. So what that means is you say, I need you to do this, then that, then this, then that, then this, then that. And it's in a document. They understand what to do. They follow it. And if they don't follow it, there's a reason they can ask, hey, I didn't understand this, and go back and forth. And then they get it right. But now you give that same thing to an AI agent. You say, okay, first this, first then that. And you can have the AI help you write an SOP, right? So what I do is I have it, because most of what I'm working on is code, I have it create a product requirement document, which is kind of like a job description for the code, right? So it's the same thing. I'll ask, hey, this is what I want to do. Give me a product requirement document and ask me any questions you need to make that document the best thing possible to get it built. Same thing with a job description. You say, okay, I'm creating an AI employee that's going to do my books. Here's what I do right now. Here's what I really would want. Create a job description for that person that is going to be my AI employee. And all that means is very similar to the PRD, but the AI employee will have a cron job, meaning a chronological point in time when it triggers to do the job. So just like humans, 9 to 5, the chronological job there is at 9 o'clock, you're expected to be at the job doing the job. And at 5 o'clock, is expected that you will be leaving or wrapping up to leave, right? That's what the normal 9 to 5 is. This is where it gets crazy. With AI, you can say, every hour on the hour, I want you to do this 24/7. So you can do that. The only reason you wouldn't do that is because it costs tokens to do it. Again, there's local models that are free though, right? So, and again, I don't want to take it too deep into that part, but eventually you're going to be able to say every second, do this, and it's going to be free. Think about what that means. Like, it's mind-boggling, and I really don't think people are scared enough until they play with this stuff. And today, I actually got more scared today than any other time I've been playing with this, because today I did so much work, and I thought just a month ago I couldn't even imagine doing this much. In a month of doing this every day, I've expanded so much in my uses of this, and I'm like, oh my God, what happens in 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, 24 months? And I'm not even the top of the world. There's people who are way better at this than me. But there's people that have no idea this exists. So those people, I feel sorry for them. And if you know anybody, share this content with them. They need to be paying attention to this. If you're a business owner an employee, an investor, you need to... Why do I talk about investors? Think about it from an investment standpoint. Look at Duolingo. Duolingo, one of the most popular apps to learn languages. Their stock is dropping like a rock. Why? You can do all this in ChatGPT now, in Claude now. So why would someone pay for Duolingo on top of an AI subscription that they're already paying for? And the market is starting to see that and react. And what is the market going to do when they realize that product can be replaced because it doesn't have any of the protections from AI? If you're an investor invested in that business and you're not thinking that, what happens to your investments? This is why it's all connected. It's all connected. You need to be thinking in every point of your business or financial life, how does AI affect me? And start reacting now, because you don't want to react when it's too late. And I know I feel like a doomer, and in my mind I am a doomer. I'm also the type of person that creates motivation for myself, right? So in a way, this is how I motivate myself. When I get scared, I become a beast. And I don't think I've ever been this scared. The last time I felt this scared was COVID. And I did a lot during COVID. A lot. Like, I did a lot. Because again, we all did probably a lot. We were sitting home all day, every day. But COVID was the last time I went live every day like I'm doing right now. And I thought about that today. I was like, well, I'm going live every day, because I was talking to my dad and he's like, you going live every day? And I was like, yeah, and I thought back, like, I did this during COVID. And why? Because I was scared. I didn't know what was going to happen with the world. Luckily, my business was online, and I did position my business to be remote. I was already remote, so I didn't have to worry. But I can imagine if I had a job that I had to go to every day, or a business that needed me there physically, like a restaurant, a club, things like that needed people. Those people, they didn't have any option. They couldn't do anything to earn a living, and that's scary. And I told myself, if this happens again, the next business I build, it will work in a situation like this. And that's where I started to really develop Stack. But AI got here sooner than the AGI, in my opinion, got here sooner than everybody thought. If you read the books, the most popular books, when they came out, they were saying what's happening right now would not happen for another 10, 15 years. So the speed, just like COVID, the exponential nature of what's happening, it's hard for humans to comprehend it. So, especially if you're not paying attention at all, you don't know how every week, man, there's charts. I got to pull up these charts one day. I'm going to maybe make a day of just scare the death out of you. Scare you as much as because the way the charts, there's charts that show like how things were going, and then they go up like this, but with AI, they're like this. And that was the kind of chart you would see with COVID, right? Like the death toll was like, oh, and then it was, right? What's happening now with AI within so many areas, job displacement, capability, usage, the usage of open source, LLM models, all this stuff is like just exploding right now. And most people are just going about their day watching Netflix. And I'm here like, oh my God, what does this mean for everybody, including myself? So I'm on it, I'm trying to be on it as much as possible. So here's my homework for you. I want you to pick a task, a tool to replace and hire. I want you to go into ChatGPT and say, this is what I'm doing. Can you create an AI employee that will do this for me? Give me the job description. Give me the PRD for creating that job description as an AI that's going to do this all day, every day for me. And again, if you need help with that, we have a free community. Actually, today's Monday. Wow. Thursday, 7 p.m. I won't be live here, but I'll be live with the free community. The link is in the description. You can join that community. We can talk out your AI employee. There's a bunch of people on there trying to create theirs. I got a course. I'm going to have a course where we meet for a few times, and I'm going to make it a course where I help people literally build their first 3 employees. What else? Any questions anywhere? Let me check. I'm live in a few different places. Yeah, and then, at the end of the day, thank you for watching whenever you've watched. If you're watching live, thank you even more. Also, another one. So I'll give you another one that just popped up today, too. I used to have this tool called, I forgot the name of it, but what it was for was every time I went live, this was during COVID, actually. Every time I went live, there were people that were saying, hey, can you let me know when you're live? And there was just enough of them where I was like, I can't text everybody when I go live. But what I could do is make a service that you could put your number in and it will text you when I go live. So I looked around back then. I found a software that I can merge a couple different softwares together, and I made it. I remade that today. And that was another thing I did today. Right? So again, this is like scary stuff. So this is what I'm saying. Like today, just multiple things that were just created by just talking to AI while I'm doing my work, and planning for this live show, picking up kids from school, dropping kids off. This is very different. I really hope you are paying attention and you're not just watching and letting it happen. I hope you are trying to implement something, and it's free. Like the information is free everywhere. You can just find it on YouTube. You can ask ChatGPT. But if you want to be a part of a community that's doing it, join my free community. I really hope you take me up on that, because I really worry for business owners, investors, employees. And I really worry about the government figuring this out. I don't have any faith that the government is going to figure this out fast. We're seeing more and more layoffs. I was seeing another thing today that was talking about how right now there's business owners that know they can replace more than half of their employees, but they're not doing it out of the humanity of it. But they don't know how long they're going to be able to do that, right? Because again, if you're a business owner, the biggest cost to a business is human capital. And if you know you can replace 50% of your human capital, that is a lot. That's a lot of money, right? And again, it's messed up, but this is the choice business owners are going to have to make. And I don't trust all of them will make the best humanity decision. And then I don't trust that the government is going to give everybody a nice check every month so we all can live amazingly. I just don't. I really do. I hope what Elon has said is we're going to have universal high income, but we're also going to have problems, So again, most people in this space, the more you play with it, the more you realize. I was also hearing something about this person was overhearing 2 people talking in a coffee shop, and they were talking about how OpenClaw was selling out Apple machines in New York City, right? And they were saying, do you know about this OpenClaw thing? And the guy was like, oh my God, yeah, I have one. You have one? And he was listening, this guy, at least on Twitter, that's what he said. And the guys, they both were like, oh my God, this is so crazy how good it is. I've been playing around with it for about a week. And he was like, I think my job is done. And the other guy was like, I think my job is done too. And the guy listening was like, this is becoming more and more of a known thing. First of all, Apple is sold out on Mac Minis. Business owners are talking about this. They're trying it. Employees are trying it. and they're realizing how good it is, and it's the worst it will ever be. So if you're not trying and understanding this stuff and trying it, you can't just use ChatGPT to ask questions like you ask Google. You need to use it as an AI employee. Everything you pay for that is an AI platform, think about it as an employee and have a set amount of production you expect from it every month, the same way you would an employee. On that note, see you tomorrow on the live stream. Thank you. Follow, like, subscribe, reach out. Thank you.